Hey, back again with more mushrooms. Only this time they're on my sweatshirt. And today I have a very special mug. This is my cow mug. I have had this thing for 30 years. It has moved to, let's see, about 17 different places. It's lived in about 5 different cities. And it's probably the only thing that's been with me every single place that I have ever gone. It's kind of a cool thing. I'm actually kind of surprised it's intact. But I love it, and I'm drinking out of it tonight because I'm celebrating. This week was a really big week. Aside from the fact that it started off with both of my laptops dying within 24 hours of each other, which I don't even really know how that happens, but it did. And that was sad. Um, I also started my first week of my quarter, which was a really fun week of firsts. So I have freshmen who are in their very first days of college, and then I have freshman grad students in their Master's of Science in Community Health and Social Justice who are in the very first days and week of their graduate program. So this week it felt really special, honestly, to just onboard folks who are super excited to start this next adventure. And I decided to share this week of next adventures by launching my clinical practice, which some of you know. And I'm excited. I'm like weirdly like goobery about it, which I don't really get very much or very often. Um, it's just been a long time coming. And I think for some of you who have known me um, or worked with me in the past, there was a period of time in my practice where it was kind of a sweet spot. All phases were good, kind of like the way I feel about parenting, like all phases are good. But there's sometimes those phases where you're like, yeah, this is when it was like really sweet. And and I have spent a lot of time in the last couple of years in taking a little breather from clinical practice, thinking about the parts that I really loved about it and also the parts that my patients really loved about it. Like, why did they like working with me? Yeah, I had a really cool office with cool pillows and benches. I had cool mugs. Um, but like there was a vibe. And so I've spent some time just really thinking about and trying to craft something this time around that can recreate those sweet spots and those sweet moments, but with all the other pieces of me that are now here many years later, just like this mug. So I'm excited for it. If you don't know about it, you can go check it out on the link on the blog and all that kind of stuff and learn more about it. And feel free to let me know what you're interested in and what you want to learn about, because that's kind of what I'm also doing here is teaching. It's the other part of me that I have actually spent 16 years cultivating right alongside my clinical practice. Not everybody knew that, but it's kind of the thing that I've always done. I've always taught doctoral students and grad students and now undergrads for many years. So I love that part of what I do too. And in case you didn't know, doctor is related to the word docere, which means to teach. So that is probably everything that I am as a teacher. So I'm really excited to actually get to blend all of this stuff together in what I do. It's going to be clinical practice, and there's also going to be some educational components. So also stay tuned for different opportunities to work together that might not necessarily be just one on one. It could be groups, it could be coaching, it could be classes, and I'm kind of putting that all together and actually working with folks in a collaborative business coaching setup to develop all of that, because I also have learned over these years that doing things alone, while having built my level of sturdiness and resilience that I think I have, is probably something that I've done enough of. So I'm going to try to stop reinventing the wheel and invite all of you to do the same in whatever parts of your life you're doing that. And it's really fun to actually seek out coaching and be someone else's student, but also alongside other people. So I also envision that that's something that I will hold space for as a clinician, but also as a teacher, for people who want to work together. Like, I want to learn with you and also alongside other people. And, but I don't necessarily need that like one-on-one experience. So stay tuned for all that. That's coming in months, right? You know, one launch at a time. But this week has been fun. I have actually really enjoyed this process of cultivating my intellectual and my creative life in this process. And I realized that my ambition related to my career, sort of my professional endeavors, really has never been about like getting to a certain point or building a certain level of expertise, even, or being regarded as like more important. But really, it's always been about like, how can I grow my intellectual, my creative capacity? And this week has really felt like a very full expression of that. So I'm happy to share it with you. The other thing that I have been thinking about this week is walking. I kind of dropped that in my last video about like, what does walking have to do with perimenopause? And so it's interesting because I got in a conversation with a good friend this week, and she was sharing that when she walks more, she feels better. And we were talking about how that is. You know, what is it that does it? Like, yeah, sure, it's the movement, right? And maybe if you walk briskly, you know, there's the cardiovascular aspects of it. There's the mobility piece, right? Use it or lose it. And really, as you get into perimenopause, you start to be very acutely aware of how that's true. You're like, oh, everything hurts. That didn't used to hurt last year. But we were thinking about like, what is the threshold? Like, what is the amount of walking that matters? And I have a watch and I track stuff, not because I'm worried about how much activity I get. At one point, I did actually track it because I was worried about how little I actually moved because I was sitting in an office all day. There were a lot of days where I got 1,500 to 2,000 steps a day because I was literally in my room all day. So if we really want to think about like a numerical evaluation of my well-being, that was probably the closest. But when I actually look at the days that I'm like, I'm feeling better, my joints are better, my sleep is better, I crossed that 8,000 threshold. Now I have dogs. I get out every single day. Rain or shine, they need to go out. I have multiple staircases. So it's not a situation where I'm just letting them out in the backyard. I'm taking them out for walks every day. So it's pretty easy to get 6,000 for me, just given my lifestyle, because I have a lot of stairs and because I have dogs. I know that that's not true for everybody. And obviously disability, injury, and pain play a huge role in whether or not that's possible for people. But I was looking at my numbers and then also looking at my sleep. So this is the cool part about like these biometric things like Fitbits or Oura rings, or I have a Samsung watch because I'm not in the iPhone generation. And 8,000. That was my threshold. Like when I crossed 8,000, things were more groovy. And so it's interesting because if you read some of the articles, you know, 10,000 was developed, like 10,000 steps a day is more so of a marketing gimmick. It's a really nice number. It's easy to remember. But you start to actually see on the graph that like the more steps you take, the better your longevity. You can cut your all-cause risk of mortality, death, all cause, in half if you get to about 8,000 steps a day. So I always think that's really fascinating. And then as you get older, the range starts to shrink, you know, between 6,000 and 8,000 if you're over 60. But if we're talking about perimenopausal people, what's your goal? Sure, I mean, set 10,000, set 12,000, whatever you like, right? But when we think about like, I mean, really, what's cool about looking at the numbers is that like something, A, is better than nothing, which stands to reason. If we drink water, if we meditate, like there's actually quantitative proof that like a little bit actually matters and a little bit more matters more. But that when you see the line in the graph, it actually like it goes up and up and up and up, almost a straight line, like 0 all the way up to 6,000. And then it starts to take a little bit of a flattening up between 6 to 8,000, and then around like 8 to 10,000, it kind of flattens out a little bit more. Which isn't to say that you don't still get benefits at 10,000, but like the difference between 8 and 10,000 isn't going to, you know, make or break you in terms of your risk of mortality. So I thought that was all kind of cool that it lined up that way in my own experience and experimentation, because I do think that no matter what the studies say, the other piece of health, right, is to take that information and then plug it in to, this hardware and see how it runs, see what sticks. It so happens that particular bit of data actually works for me in terms of my sleep, my joints, and just overall how I feel mentally, emotionally too, from day to day and then throughout my cycle. So I thought I'd share a little bit of that with you as well. Definitely, if you want to read more about it, there's plenty of articles out there. There's some firewalls too, which I'm sure you all know about. And, thanks for sharing this week of celebration with me. I appreciate it. Bye.